So how do we check our coolant and put coolant in our car? Now, just so you know, every car here can be different. Some cars have a radiator cap and a reservoir. Some only have a pressurized reservoir for you to look at. And then the type of coolant you use is very specific to your car. There are several different types. I generally don't recommend the one that's known as a universal coolant that's supposed to be able to work in all cars. I generally recommend the one that is specific to your car. So knowing that matters. And the easiest way to know is to look it up in the owner's manual. If your car doesn't have an owner's manual, you can look it up on Google, or at the auto parts store, you can ask what coolant belongs in your car. Now, like I said, some cars have a reservoir. Well, all cars have some type of reservoir, but some cars also have a pressurized radiator. Now, when checking your coolant, you want to be very careful because if it's hot, it's going to be under pressure and it'll spray hot steam at you. So you want to be very careful if you check this yourself. Maybe it's a good idea to just have the mechanic check this next time it's in the shop for an oil change. But needless to say that, we should know how to do it ourselves anyways. Well, the first thing we will need to do is get that hood open. Now, every car is a little bit different, but most cars have a pretty similar process. We're going to go into the driver's side of the car. Let me switch cameras around and let's go over to the driver's side of the car and release the hood from inside the car. All right, so we are going to open the driver's door, and what we see is down by the foot pedals. Let me pull that key out so we don't hear this binging noise the whole time. All right, down by the foot pedals is usually where you're going to find the release. Now on this car, it's right here. That's supposed to be a car with a hood open is what that symbol means. Sometimes it's over here, like directly underneath the steering wheel. Those are the two most common places where you'll find this hood release. So we're going to give it a pull, and I heard a clink outside the car, which is the hood releasing. So let's go out there and take a look. So now we see that the hood is slightly popped up. Not a lot. Sometimes it doesn't pop up much, so you just give it a little yank with your fingers to get it up. And now there's a secondary safety release. Pretty much every car will have one, and it's in this crack somewhere. Sometimes it's on this end, sometimes it's on the right side, sometimes it's on the left side, sometimes it's in the middle, and sometimes, in very rare circumstances, there's like a little pull down in the grill. It's usually sticking out. It's a little bit different. Most cars, though, will have this style release. Now, if I look, I can see, it's hard to see on camera. There it is. See that little tab sticking out there? We're going to push that release over and then lift the hood up. Now, this hood stays up on its own. Some cars will have a little bar right about here that you'll lift up and you'll put into a little slot here to hold it up. That is a hood prop or a hood stand, whatever you want to call it. That's what that's for. And that is how we get our hood up. Now we have access to the engine compartment. All right, so now we got the camera flipped around. Now, if we have a radiator that we can check, the cap is going to be usually right about here. Looking at the front of the car, that's towards the left-hand side. It's usually right about here. And that will be very hot. Now, I don't have one in this car right here. So that is not how we're going to check our radiator fluid. So now we need to find the reservoir. Now, oddly, this reservoir seems to be a little further back than I would normally expect to be, but it's right here. And now, how do we know this is for the coolant or the radiator fluid? It says Dexcool, and I know that's coolant. So this picture is supposed to be water in a radiator with a little radiator cap. Now what's funny about that diagram is it shows the standard old-fashioned radiator with fluid in it with a radiator cap, but we don't have that style system. So like I said, now we'll be very careful because if it's hot, it can be pressurized and have steam. So we unscrew this, and it is tight. Open this up, and then we can look down inside that tank. And if you look down in there, you will see down at the bottom just a little bit of a yellowish colored fluid. That is hard to see in this one, but there is coolant in there. Sometimes you can see through the side of the tank. See, this is very hard to get to, but we can see right here is a line. And that is usually the fill line. If we look, there's text right there, and it probably says, oh, there, I can see it. It says cold full. So what that means is when the car is cold, like it is right now, we have the cap off, it's cold, we would fill this tank till the fluid is up to this line. Now that is difficult to see sometimes, but that is the way these work. Now if you have a standard style reservoir, I'm going to go ahead and put this cap back on here. A standard style reservoir, it may have a less secure type cap, but it's going to have a cap of some type that you can put fluid in. And then if you have the cap over here on top of your radiator should look full at all times, and then your reservoir should have the additional fluid over in there. So that is how we check our radiator fluid and how we refill it. When you refill it, make sure you are using the correct radiator fluid, or coolant as it's called for your car. Let's talk about that quick a moment. Why is it called radiator fluid or coolant? Well, coolant refers to its function. It's not to cool you in the car like air conditioning, it is to cool the engine. That fluid is pumped all through the engine. There are little ports all around the engine that it pumps through, and then it comes out to the radiator at the front of the car here, and wind will blow over it and cool it down, and then it will go back through the engine to cool the engine down, and it just keeps circulating like that, keeping your engine cool while running. Without coolant or radiator fluid, your car will overheat, and that is why this is important. Now, the reason we don't use just water, because it is moving through the engine and all those metal components, it needs to have rust protection in it so that your engine doesn't corrode. The other reason we don't use just water, because in wintertime we don't want it to freeze. If it freezes, one, it won't flow, but two, as it freezes, it expands. And when it's inside the metal parts of your engine, when it expands, it'll cause that metal to crack, cracking your engine block. And then your engine is no good anymore. So we want to make sure we are using a proper coolant for our car. Now, a lot of times when we buy coolant from the auto parts store, it is a concentrated coolant. And frequently we mix that coolant with an equal part water. So 1 bottle of coolant to 1 equal bottle of water is how we would mix that. Some coolants you can buy at the auto parts store already mixed and diluted to the right amount. So just know what you're buying and make sure that you're using the correct thing. I hope this is helpful for you to learn how to check your coolant and fill your coolant. And please click that subscribe button for more easy how-tos so you can learn how to do other things yourself as well. And please comment down below what you thought of this video and any comments and questions you may have. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.